This story started with passionate kisses. There were two of them in the large bedroom. The guy and the girl were sitting on the bed and kissing. The girl was on top and dominated the boy. Her kisses became more and more passionate. Then she slowly started unbuttoning the boy's shirt. He grabbed her hand and called Selena. When the girl did not pay attention to him, the boy squeezed her hand tighter and took her away from him. He asked to stop. The boy asked what they were making now, and Selena gave him a displeased look. She was a rather attractive girl with blue eyes and long silver hair. Taking a step back and freeing her hand, Selena noticed that Millard was messing things up as usual. She pointed out to Millard, a handsome boy with dark hair and deep red eyes, that it was hard the first time, but the second time was easier. Taking the boy's ear gently, Selena began massaging it and asked if she wasn't the only one who enjoyed it that day, right? Millard frowned. Getting up from the bed, he offered the girl to forget about that day. But Selena was persistent. She pushed the boy back onto the bed and continued to caress his ear. The girl said that she would not forget it. On the contrary, she wants to do it again. And she wished that he didn't need to do anything. And putting the boy down on the bed, Selena looked into his eyes and whispered for him to just lie still. The next moment, Selena was lying on the cold floor in front of the fireplace in the large living room. She was covered only by a thin shawl. Someone was calling her. The voice grew louder and louder, and finally the angry scream not only woke the girl but also frightened her. It was Selena's father. Coming closer, he asked angrily, "Why is she lying here?" Then he poked his finger at her and angrily asked if it was possible that she couldn't stand on her feet. Her father said that His Highness had ordered her to come to the palace. Therefore, he told his daughter to hurry up and start packing. Tired, Selena looked at her husband and asked if it was true. To which the father snarled displeasedly that he should not be questioned again, since she had already heard everything. And he noted that the girl should not even start a conversation about the fact that she will not go. Selena replied that it was not the case, but that today's ritual was more difficult than the previous one, that she still hasn't left. Then the man shouted angrily that he was not interested in excuses, that poor Selena shuddered. Leaving the room, the father angrily pointed out that if the girl did not want to be pulled by her hair again, as she had been when she was a child, then she should get up right now, start packing, and dress accordingly. And at the end, he also threw so that she would not dare to dishonor their family. And the man left. Leaving the room, the girl's father passed by the maid, who only gave the master a disapproving look. The maid then approached and addressed Lady Selena, who was just rising to her feet. The girl was surprised to see a maid named Anna. Anna wondered if the lady was very tired, and if this is so, then she offered to help the girl put on hanbok, clothing for official and semi-official receptions, festivals, holidays. Helping her mistress with her clothes, Anna wondered what the lady was saying, that consciousness felt heavier at the moment than it had before, Selena confirmed. The girl thought to herself that this winter is especially difficult, that the ice wall wants more energy. And imagining herself in front of a huge ice wall in the middle of a snowy landscape, the girl said that she believed that everything would work out this time. And the maid kept wondering if the ritual was the use of the blessing of the ice goddess? Is this what is holding back the ice wall that is located in the north of the kingdom? And what is outside the wall? Selena replied that no one knows that, but one thing is known for sure: if the ice wall falls, then a great disaster will befall the kingdom. The girl noted that in fact, this is just an errand that you just need to support. The lady also remarked that it must be difficult to maintain this giant wall of ice every winter. Nevertheless, because of this power, the Stewart family received a powerful blessing. Anna listened carefully to the lady and thought. She remembered an unpleasant incident from the past. When the other two maids of the estate indignantly lashed out at the young lady, what was so difficult about it? That given what they could enjoy with this ability, the lady should have worked harder. The maid thought to herself that she didn't really have anything to like about this ability. But Lady Celine's sudden violent cough brought the maid back to reality. Anna was excited. She asked the lady, why didn't the lady tell His Highness that she would come to see him next time? The maid explained that she would like her mistress to rest at least a little. Selena replied that they could not. If His Highness called them, then there was a reason for that. The maid asked, "Does not His Highness know that today is the day of the ritual?" And then Anna added that she remembered that His Highness had also invited Duke Millard. Selina was hooked. Then she returned to the maid and asked warily about Millard. Anna smiled and replied that it seemed His Highness Leandro and Duke Millard were acquainted with her lady. After all, they all studied together at the academy. Selina sighed heavily and said about herself that it is for this reason that most people misunderstand them. They were never the best friends people made them out to be. Moreover, His Highness Leandro knows very well that she and Duke Millard do not get along. Selina remembered Leandro's words when they were still studying at the academy. Then His Highness said that after the graduation, unless something very bad happened to the kingdom, he would never call them both to the same place, or they would bite each other's throats. And then, with a smile, he added that they should all pray that the three of them would never meet in the same place again. The girl kept thinking that after that statement, His Highness did not invite them together for a whole year. She could not believe that he called them both to the same place. And that could only mean one thing: that Sebastian's kingdom was in danger. A little later, in the luxurious main palace of the Sebastian kingdom, the question was also heard, will Selina come too? Calmly sipping his tea, His Highness Leandro replied that he thought she would be here soon. Another voice noted that a year ago His Highness had said that they would never get together. To which Leandro replied that he did not know that the boy was counting these days. He also noted that he could not believe that Lord Millard cared so much for Selina. His Highness then added that he always wondered after graduation what would happen if the two of them met again. Annoyed at this, Millard said that he was asking Leandro not to say such terrible things. Leandro laughed. Millard asked if he said anything funny, and His Highness, pointing at the irritated boy with his finger, said with a smile that the same Duke Millard Eckhart himself, who could not be embarrassed. Therefore, it is impossible not to find it funny how the Duke's emotions are revealed from the mere mention of Selina. And then, in a more serious voice, Leandro remarked, hadn't he told them after graduation that he would only call them both in a serious situation? Here it reached Millard. Here the servant announced that Mrs. Celine Stewart had arrived, and the door to the study opened. Entering the room, Selina bowed her head, bowed and greeted His Highness Leandro. She was dressed in a light snow-white dress with open shoulders, which was decorated with a blue bow on the neckline, and the girl's eyes were emphasized by a necklace with a large blue diamond. His Highness greeted the lady and asked if she was very tired after the last ritual. Millard, blinded for a moment by the girl's beauty, was silent and only watched. Meanwhile, Selina replied to His Highness that she was fine, so there was nothing to worry about. Millard began to get annoyed. The boy remarked about himself that he could not believe that this girl was still wearing clothes out of season. Does she herself not see that it is not the middle of summer? It pissed him off so much that he turned to Selina. But Leandro stopped the Duke. He put his hand on the boy's shoulder, signaling him to be silent. And he himself noted that now is a very cold season. And he asked the girl why she was dressed so summery. Selina looked at His Highness in surprise and asked if it was really so summer-like. Leandro confirmed that it was, because it was cold and winter was outside. And then His Highness quietly whispered to Millard, who was seething with anger, to hold on, not to break down. Suddenly, the jacket flew into Selina's hands. It was Millard's jacket. The guy just told her to cover up. The girl looked at the boy and asked if he doesn't like her clothes so much that it's easier to cover up with something else to cover everything up. And then she pointed out that her shoulders were quite attractive, so that the boy would know. Millard took a bad look at Selina and replied that this was not the case at all. Then the disgruntled Duke told the girl that it was time to engage in nonsense. He was a very busy man. What did Selina ask? That according to him they are not busy. And so began the verbal altercation between Selina and Millard. With a heavy sigh, Leandro thought to himself that these two were at it again, and then asked them to finally stop. His Highness once again asked the couple to calm down and sit down. He said that the reason he decided to bring everyone together is because he has a request for them. Millard and Selina listened to Leandro's words. They sat down at the table to listen attentively to His Highness before the Duke took his jacket back. Selina and Millard understood that, despite the fact that Leandro was a bastard, that is, a child out of wedlock, he was still born in the palace and grew up as a prince all his life. Therefore, it is most likely not a request, but an order of the prince. Then His Highness thought for a moment over a cup of tea, and then announced that the two of them were to be married. At first there was a silent pause in the room, and then Celine asked in an uncertain voice if she had heard correctly that His Highness had said that. And then the girl, at the same time as the boy, pointed their fingers at each other and angrily asked that they were to be married. Leandro replied that it was, in other words, it was a marriage, just the two of them. Just as the prince was about to explain what it was for, Millard interrupted him. The Duke angrily said that Leandro had already lost his mind after living in the royal family, that he would rather live without marriage as a recluse for the rest of his life than to marry this demon. The prince once again began to explain why this was needed, but this time Celine interrupted him. She said she would agree with Millard on that she felt the same way. Leandro wanted to explain again, but the fight between Selina and Millard was so heated that they couldn't hear anyone or anything around them. Here His Majesty could not stand it, and slamming his hand on the table told them to stop. Leandro looked sternly at his friends and asked them to finally let him explain everything, that when they listen to him, they will understand everything. The prince began to tell that they both already knew that the king would hand over the throne to the crown prince in the near future, that there is a lot of talk about it among aristocrats, that not only Selina and Millard know perfectly well that his mother is from the common people, therefore it is an excellent topic for gossip. Here Celine could not stand it, and asked if Leandro did not mean by this that it was for this reason that the throne would be given to the inexperienced His Highness Prince Andrew, and not to him, the more talented Prince Leandro. The girl also said that the fact is that Leandro is in no way inferior to Andrew, and even better, and that everyone in the empire knows it. In this, Millard agreed with Selina. He also said that Andrew is not that smart in political matters, and he does not have the king's trust. But, just by the fact that he is the legitimate son of the king and queen, Andrew wins the trust of the aristocrats. They will still prefer to have a person on the throne who is easier to control. Therefore, it is clear in whose favor the aristocrats will make a choice. Leandro is right, which is exactly the difference between him and Andrew. His Majesty noted that only a small number of aristocrats would support him. That is why he hopes that the families of Millard and Selina will support him in this difficult matter. Leandro also noted that having the ability to manipulate ice, the Stuart family is preventing the destruction of the huge ice wall on the territory of the Eckhart estate. And the Eckhart family, who have the ability to control fire, start a fire to warm the especially cold Stuart estate. Therefore, if you enlist the support of the two families that occupy most of the kingdom and have the blessing of the goddess, you can completely suppress all the nobles who resist. Selina got up from her seat and emphasized to His Highness that in the Stuart family, she was the only one with the power of a goddess, and that he already knew that she was on his side. Therefore, the girl believes that it is not necessary to enter into marriage. Leandro laughed and told the girl that he perfectly understood what she was feeling. Then, in a less joyful tone, the prince explained that she was indeed on his side but not her family. And a girl cannot go against the will of her family. Selina fell silent. She had nothing to say to that, because Leandro was right. She cannot disobey her father, who already considers her only a tool. Millard noticed how upset Selina was, and Leandro continued to say that if Selina, who bore the surname Eckhart, belonged to the family that supports him, then the head of the Stuart family, Lord Mafra, would not be able to do anything reckless and force the girl to do something undesirable. That's why the two of them should get married. After carefully listening to His Highness, Millard wondered if this was the only possible way. Leandro answered that this way is the safest and most effective, that is why he is ready to beg them. The prince also added that it was necessary to create the ideal world they dreamed of. Millard thought for a moment and then said that in theory, their marriage contract would help His Highness become king, but he thought it would still make little difference. Selina jumped up again, saying that she hated to admit it, but Millard was right. Her family's relationship will not change just because she marries Millard. Therefore, Leandro should forget about this plan. With these words, the girl headed for the exit and informed the boys that she was coming back. Leandro asked Selina to wait and noted that he understood everything perfectly. He promised that he would not talk about marriage anymore, but offered to talk about anything else. Selina remarked that if it wasn't something important, she would leave. The prince hastened to assure that it was indeed very important. The girl sighed heavily and frowned, but still decided to stay and listen to His Highness. When Selina returned and sat down at the table, Leandro noted that he hadn't expected the two of them to refuse so persistently. His Highness then inquired why the two of them hated each other so much. Selina was the first to answer the question. She noted that His Highness should know better than anyone in this country how arrogant and haughty the Eckhart family is. To which Millard advised the girl, before looking at anyone else, she should first look at her own Stewart family. Leandro noted that it was no secret that their families had been feuding for several generations, but suggested, instead, to remember the times when they were good friends. Then the prince noted with irony that it seems the two of them got along very well in their youth. "Here!" Selina will shout angrily so that the guy does not remember that this is a ridiculous story. Leaving the table, the girl said she was leaving. She is too tired after the ritual, and she has already exhausted her nerves, so she wants to rest. Millard wanted to stop her by pointing out that they weren't done yet. Then the boy also got up and begged His Highness, and warned that he would leave for a moment. The prince nodded his head in agreement. As Millard ran after Selina, trying to get her back, all the commotion gave Leandro a headache. But when there was silence in the room, His Majesty began to think calmly. People said that Celine had a hot temper because she had to survive under the oppression of her father, Lord Maufray. But Millard, who is usually quite calm, becomes so irritated only in Selina's presence. Sighing heavily, Leandro collapsed on the chair, thinking, how can he convince these two? The prince wondered if these two did not understand that he only wanted their marriage for the sake of achieving his own goal. And he still hasn't told them that they need to deal with one case together. Therefore, everything must be done quickly. After all, recently more and more reports of strange events have been received. Meanwhile, the sun was already setting and dusk was slowly falling on the earth. Somewhere in the empire, on an empty street of a small town, a baker called out to the children playing outside. The man was carrying a tray of hot bread. He noted that the sun is already setting and it is time for the children to go home. The boy who was playing with the girl said that he wanted to play some more, and the baker asked if he wasn't afraid that his mother might spank him if he was late. With puppy eyes, the children answered that they were afraid, but they still didn't want to. Then the baker shouted that their mother was waiting for them and told them to hurry home. Then the children said goodbye to their caring Uncle Fabian and ran headlong home. Amidst the silence of the deserted street, someone's cry suddenly rang out. The man looked around in fright. Eerie sobs and moans came from the dark alleyway behind him. The man felt sick. He thought about the fact that recently there had been an increase in cases of kidnapping, which is why they had introduced a law that people, and especially children, could not roam the streets at night. In his voice, the baker assumed that those pranksters did not want to go home so much that they decided to play a trick on the old uncle, and he himself thought that they needed to be at home before dark. The man shouted that it was not funny, and he ordered the children to leave now, otherwise he will only scold them more. But not getting an answer, Fabian dared to enter the alley. After passing through the dead alley, the man covered his nose from the stench. He said that at the next town meeting the issue of cleaning the alleys should be raised, otherwise it would smell strange. Walking further, the man called the children. He kept trying to follow the sound he heard from the depths of the alley. Suddenly, the baker saw a grim-faced man near the wall. He was facing the wall and holding on to it. Fabian called out to the stranger and asked if he had seen the children who had recently passed here. He explained that he wanted to take the children home before it was completely dark in the yard. But when the stranger turned around, he growled. Fabian was horrified because the man's face was kind of gray, emaciated with sunken cheeks, his teeth were broken, and his eyes were huge, crazy, and looked in different directions. The frightened baker asked why the man looked like that. Is he all right? But the stranger only growled and began to approach Fabian. Terrified, Fabian started shouting for him not to come near him, but no one heard him, and only a gray, bloodied hand suddenly reached out to the baker. A moment later, splashes of blood flew over the walls and a new eerie scream filled the alley. After some time, Selina was immersed in her memories. She remembered how she had been running happily around the garden, with a basket of pies in her hands when she was still very young, and the still very young Millard was trying to catch up with her. The boy asked where she was in such a hurry, and little Selina answered that they were going to have a picnic, and suddenly one pie fell out of the basket. When the pie landed on the ground, the girl said with regret in her voice that the pie had fallen. She asked Millard if he really couldn't eat it now. The boy regretfully replied that now it is not possible. And then, in a joyful voice, Millard drew the attention of a sad Selena to something near the pie. There were ants, which began to converge in thin lines from everywhere to their pie, and it seemed very funny to him. Millard then remarked that they still had plenty of food, and suggested that Celine share some with the ants. The girl did not like this idea. Then, dissatisfied, Selena sank to the ground and began to crush the ants. Shocked, Millard asked what she was doing. To which the girl replied that he could see what she was doing because they were stealing their food. The boy was amazed. After stopping Selena from destroying the insects, Millard decided to explain to her and said that the ants were just hungry, so she should consider it a charity. Selena looked at the boy and thought that she does not understand how you can share with someone what belongs to you. Isn't that a ridiculous waste of food? Moreover, this bun was hers to begin with, so why should she share? The girl thought that you never know when you might die of hunger. She remembered how once she had been chased out of the kitchen when she was hungry, saying that they had no food to share with her. She looked at the happy Millard and wondered if he had never been hungry. The girl sighed heavily and thought, if only she were as well off as he was. Although no, if she was the daughter of Duke Eckhart, then they would have switched places with Millard. Then maybe she would also be as generous and kind as him. Thinking like this, Selena began to feel jealous that Millard had such a carefree life. She suddenly turned around and told her friend that it was not fun at all on the street, so she wanted to go back. Millard was surprised and noted that they were going to have a picnic. Returning to the estate, Millard asked what they would do then. Selena thought for a moment and offered to play in the room. The boy agreed. But when they walked down the corridor to Selena's room, the girl heard voices. The door to the study wasn't fully closed, so Selena heard her father's voice. She decided that the adults must be having a meeting now. The girl heard the conversation. Someone had turned to her father and said that he already knew that the power that both their families possessed was precious. The Stewart estate is warmed by Millard's fire, and Selena's icy power prevents the ice wall from falling on the Eckhart estate. And Duke Eckhart replied that Celine was not perfect enough to control this power, so there was a high probability that everything would get out of control. Therefore, he believes that his son, who has the opposite power, will be able to stop everything himself. The Duke also recalled that last time they were all very scared when Selena lost her temper and almost destroyed everything. Mafra replied that there was no need to worry about it. The girl is still very young, and in the future she will learn everything. The girl's father also noted that if their children continue to grow closer and befriend each other, then perhaps they will put an end to the long-standing enmity between their two families. Having eavesdropped on the adults' conversation, Selena thought, she decided that her father and Duke Eckhart, they were both just using her, and this made the girl very angry. Millard was worried when he saw how Selena's face changed after hearing the conversation. He extended his hand to her and wanted to say something. That girl unexpectedly pushed his hand away, not letting him touch her. She looked coldly at Millard and apologized. She said she didn't want to play with him anymore. Millard was puzzled. He also felt sorry for himself, and what's more, he didn't understand what had happened to Selena. The girl thought that the more she played with Millard, the more jealousy and envy consumed her. Moreover, the closer they become, the more obvious the fact that she is just being used. Therefore, she no longer wanted to spend even more time with Millard, but wanted to become people with him who simply greeted each other, and that was it. Selena continued to think like this while studying at the academy. But this could not prevent rumors about her origin from spreading. In the academy, it was often whispered that the girl was an illegitimate child of the Duke, and nothing was known about the origin of her mother, so everyone assumed that she was from the common people. This annoyed Selena quite a bit, especially since such rumors appeared about someone every year. And so, walking along the corridor of the academy, she heard someone excitedly shouting Millard's name. Millard really appeared in the corridor, who, smiling, happily greeted everyone. Other students started asking him what his plans were after class and suggested he come to the party. The guy was surrounded by students and agreed to the proposal, while Selena stood alone on the sidelines. She thought to herself that she and Millard both possessed the power of a goddess. But at the same time, the attitude towards them is so different, that she looks so inconspicuous against the background of the boy. Returning to the present, Selena confidently walked down the corridor of the royal palace to the exit, and Millard, catching up with her, asked her to wait at least a moment. The girl stopped for a moment. Millard said about himself that Selena, as usual, as soon as the story of her family emerges, her character immediately escalates. But just as the boy reached for the girl's shoulder, he heard whispering behind him. The boy shuddered and froze when he heard two men standing in the corridor spot and recognized them as the Stuart and Eckhart heirs. One man turned to another with a question. Does he not feel this cold atmosphere? And he made an assumption that it is probably due to the fact that the relations between the two families will remain the same. The second replied that they were lucky in this. And the first one agreed. The stranger noted with horror that if everything had been the other way around, these families would have become friends and united their efforts. That would be a shocking blow to the entire kingdom. The second man agreed with the interlocutor, but he himself noted that there is nothing to worry about yet. Then the first asked if he was sure of this. The man said that there were rumors that the late Duke Eckhart and his wife were descended from the Stuart family. Hearing this, the enraged Millard looked at the men and snarled eerily, "What kind of nonsense are they talking about here?" Suddenly, Selena's hand touched his hand and, holding the boy's sleeve, turned to him. She calmly looked at Millard and told him not to be angry. After all, the words of these people mean nothing, and his actions will not change anything. The guy calmed down and noted that she was right, but he was troubled by the words of His Highness Leandro, to which Selena replied that she hoped that Leandro would take their decision calmly. After all, they decided so, etc. There was a reason for it, and that nothing bad should happen from this. Here Millard took the girl by the hand and said that, in fact, he was ready to agree. Although His Highness chose a truly crazy method of solving the problem. Let marriage be an effective method, but he is sure that there will be another solution. Selena looked at Millard intently with her blue eyes. Then the guy said that he agreed. There would be no marriage. The girl replied that she was glad that at least once in their lives they had agreed on something, and she noted that if the boy had nothing more to say, she would leave, because the coachman was already waiting for her. Millard looked in surprise at the carriage the girl was pointing at. He asked if she really came to the palace on this. Selena did not understand why he was, and confirmed that it was so, and the boy took one more look at the simple green carriage, which was already battered by time and roads. Then Millard rushed to the carriage. Selena looked at him puzzled and asked what was the matter. The boy approached the carriage and firmly grasped the wooden handle of the carriage door. Selena did not understand what was happening and kept trying to get an answer from Millard. What was he going to do? And he was pulling with all his might on the door of the carriage, which creaked and the door came off. The poor coachman was horrified and Selena's mouth fell open in shock. Millard finally replied that he was not going to do anything like that. He only noted that her carriage had become unusable, so the girl had no choice. And Millard, with a satisfied smile on his face, said that in that case he would give her a ride home. Selena really had no other choice and went home in his carriage. The heavy silence during the journey made the girl feel awkward, which annoyed her. Finally, Selena spoke first. The girl pointed out that Millard was crossing the line, that there is no need to worry or feel sorry for her. The guy asked what she meant, and asked if she really thinks that he decided to give her a ride out of pity. Then the girl asked what difference it made to him then, whether she would go in a broken carriage or not, to which Millard calmly replied that the girl was not thinking about that. He noted that she had come to the royal palace and that she was the honored guest of His Highness Leandro. If she left the royal palace in a broken carriage without a door, unwanted rumors would spread. Therefore, Prince Leandro would be embarrassed to let his guest go in such a transport. Turning away from Millard, Selene haughtily remarked that there was some logic in this. The guy angrily corrected her, which is not a little but completely logical. Selena then said that her family's estate was still far from the Eckhart estate, and asked if the boy was sure it was worth taking her that far. To which Millard replied that his friend lived nearby and he needed to meet him, and asked the lady to stop looking for a trick. The girl laughed and remarked that Millard was brazenly lying, that he is not one to keep in touch even with his friends from the academy, but Millard also smiled back and asked how she should know. After all, she had no friends at all. Here, Selena hesitated with a good answer and only asked again, where did he get it from? And the guy threw up his hands and noted that she herself did not reach out to anyone. Selena was surprised and asked, what about the graduation? Millard said she wanted so badly to say goodbye to him then, with the only one whom the girl could call a true friend. That's why I went to the graduation, because of him. And then it happened. Here, Selena and Millard remembered one scene from the prom where she hugged the guy and invited him to move to her place and have a drink there. The couple looked at each other embarrassed, and then both blushed deeply. Then Selena pointed out in an approving voice that everything was completely wrong. And Millard also excitedly answered that maybe he doesn't remember everything correctly. How here the Duke's carriage ran over a huge stone. The crew shook and tossed around a lot, and along with it, Selena couldn't stay still. Millard had just shouted for the girl to be careful as... The next moment, the beautiful Selena was in his arms, very close to his face. The girl ran her fingers over Millard's chest and thought to herself that he was so warm, just like that day. The boy's hand was on Selena's waist. While their lips were involuntarily drawn to each other, Selena kept thinking that maybe that was the reason why she didn't want to let him go at some point. She thought, what if we imagine that this did not happen? And it was at this moment that Selena and Millard came to their senses, at the moment when their lips almost merged in a kiss. A pale Selena jumped away from the boy and sat down in her seat. She apologized and explained that she had slightly lost her balance. Embarrassed, Millard only replied that everything was fine. Did the girl think to herself that she did not understand what had just happened? And why is she shaking so much? She decided to forget everything about that day and end everything. Then why is her heart pounding now? Millard silently looked at the embarrassed girl, who did not look him in the eyes, and only scratched his neck, not knowing what to say. And so finally, the carriage arrived at the large estate of the Stewart family, Selena's house. Millard was the first to disembark and, like a true gentleman, shook hands with the lady. Coming out of the carriage, Selena was beautiful and graceful. The girl told Millard that whatever the reason was, thanks to him, she got home without any problems and thanked the boy. But just as she was about to say something else, Duke Mafra's menacing voice was heard. The father angrily shouted his daughter's name and rushed to the carriage. Coming closer, the man was surprised when he saw Duke Millard. He shouted with even more anger, "What the hell was going on here?" Selena could not say a word because her father kept shouting and asking a lot of questions. Where is her carriage? And why did she get here in Eckhart's carriage? Finally, the girl turned to Duke Stewart and said that she would explain everything to him. But just as she wanted to tell everything, her father interrupted her again. He shouted that he didn't need her excuses and ordered to go home. Selena once again tried to explain everything, and the Duke roared that she had decided to contradict him. Is it possible that the girl did not hear that he told her to go to the house? And with this roar, the man swung at his daughter. But suddenly a wall rose in front of Selena. Millard said in a calm tone that he had already been surprised that the Duke had come out in person to meet his daughter. Covering Selene with himself and looking straight into Duke Mafra's eyes, the boy asked if the man really just wanted to yell at his daughter one more time, and even raised his hand to her. The boy continued to say that the old and broken carriage as a means of transport, raising his hand and shouting at his daughter. Somehow the attitude of the elders towards their heirs in the Stewart family had deteriorated greatly. And with a stern look at Duke Mafra, Millard added that he had drawn conclusions. Then the guy turned around and said goodbye to Selena and left. The girl's father was stunned and did not know how to respond to such audacity. Millard then stopped and turned to Selena once more. The girl looked at him in surprise. Without turning to Selena, the boy asked how long she was going to put up with this. Is this what she really wants? Then Millard looked around and added, "Isn't it time to think about it?" His soulful words echoed with pain in my heart. The girl thought about herself. Did she really want such a life? This cannot be true. And Millard was always like that. Everything he said could not be wrong a priori. But even so, he does not know everything. As Millard drove away, Duke Mafra asked the coachman if he was the one in charge of Selena's carriage today. The frightened man confirmed that it was him. Clutching his cane in his hands, the Duke asked what the devil the coachman was making anyway. That this guy? And Mafra, enraged, lashed out with his cane at the poor man, shouting, "Why didn't the coachman stop that insolent Eckhart?" Selina was frightened and rushed to the aid of an innocent person. She shouted to her father. The next moment, a bright beam of blue light passed the coachman and knocked the cane out of the hands of the girl's angry father. The Duke was stunned. He began to shout even more that Selina had used the power of the goddess on him, her father, that she must have lost her mind. Covering the servant, Selina calmly told her father to stop. The coachman is innocent. On the contrary, her carriage was broken, and this man saw to it that it was repaired and sent to them. And in general, she made the final decision, not the coachman. The girl also added that if her father wants to cook her like that, then let him. But the coachman is useless here. To which the Duke retorted that she was an abomination. The father began to list that it was he who raised her, fed her, and clothed her. And she is an ungrateful nothingness. That's how she expresses gratitude to her precious father, threatening him? Selina looked coldly at the man who was pouring dirt on her. How a blue light appeared again, which completely enveloped the girl. The Duke was nervous. He thought to himself, did the girl begin to fully control her power? The man cursed her, a half-breed who was born from the belly of a rabid, worthless dog, that she will never become complete. I hear Duke Mafra shouted that she is a trap, who still does not realize only thanks to whom her younger brother Neville is still alive. At the same moment, the power enveloping Selina subsided. The Duke was glad that the girl had been caught. He asked Selina if she knew how much the medicine he was buying for the boy in the magic tower was worth. The man also noted that if Neville stops taking the drugs, he will die very soon, and asked if the girl had not forgotten about it. Selina replied that she had forgotten and bowed and apologized to her father. Raising his cane, the man headed for the estate. Finally, he told the girl that he knew that there was even a drop of sanity left in her stupid head. The father ordered his daughter not to make money anymore, otherwise she will not wait for a good relationship. Walking down the corridor of the manor, Duke Stewart irritably tapped his tambourines under his breath. He scolded Selina and could not believe that she dared to rebel against him. He was sorry that brainwashing was not working on the girl in the right way. The man remembered how Selina first appeared at the estate. She was brought by a man in a sorcerer's robes from the magic tower, small, covered in snow and in rags, who said that he had finally found the Duke's daughter. The sorcerer said that there were rumors in the village about a girl who used the power of the goddess. When the Duke saw her, he remarked about himself that she was a strange girl, and just by looking at her, one could safely say that she had a hard life. The sorcerer reported about the girl's family, that only her mother and younger brother remained. The Duke thought that if he treated her like a princess, he could use the child and make her do whatever he wanted. Then he knelt down next to the girl and said hello. Then he asked how she was doing and asked for forgiveness for not visiting her. The man explained that he had a lot to do, but he missed her a lot. Selina looked at the strange man in surprise and asked why he was telling her all this, and the Duke replied that the fact is that he is her father. A little later, when the girl was bathed, changed, and fed, the Duke and the wizard tested the girl's abilities. But she did not succeed. Father asked, maybe Selina has some problems? And advised her to concentrate better. The girl replied that she did not know what the matter was, but it was difficult. She complained to her father that it was difficult for her, that she also wants her mother and missed her younger brother very much. With a smile, the Duke reminded the girl of his words that if Selina tried hard, he would bring them to live here, in the estate. Therefore, if she was motivated, then let her try again. But Selina did not calm down. She said that she did not like it and did not want to do it anymore. But when little Selina began to cry and call for her mother, Duke Stewart's patience came to an end. He suddenly started shouting at the girl, "How dare she contradict him?" And he said, if she doesn't try, her mother will die. Selina's tears dried instantly. She was shocked by such a change in her father. At first, she asked if her father had lied to her. After all, he promised that he would let them see each other. But then the girl's words changed. She told herself that she could not see her mother yet because she was sick. But if she is diligent, the mother will definitely recover and they will meet. The upset and angry girl was enveloped in a bright blue light. and then one ray of this light flew in a flash in the direction of the Duke and the sorcerer. They managed to evade. Only a small scratch appeared on the face of the frightened Duke. He was happy about himself that this is the power of the goddess. That finally the girl can freely use it. But, looking around the hall in which they were, Mafra saw that everything around was covered with ice. Walls, floor, furniture, and white snow began to fall from the ceiling. The man didn't understand what the hell it was. A little later, the servants reported that the ice had spread to the garden itself, and the sorcerer at the estate had frozen to death. Someone in the Stewart family stressed that the Eckharts should be called for help. Then everyone in the estate shouted that it was a disaster. After the incident, the Duke told Celine that since he will help her in the future, it is worth remembering their earlier agreement. The man explained that she did not quite understand him correctly. In fact, her mother was seriously ill and died. But at the moment, he is making every effort to get Neville all the necessary medicine, so she also needs to make every effort to help her father. This is what Selina remembered from the past, sitting on the bed in her room. Then she remembered the moment today when she used her power and knocked the cane out of her father's hands. The word catastrophe echoed loudly in the girl's head and echoed with pain in her heart. She thought that Duke Eckhart had said that the power she possessed was catastrophic, and that's true, that's how it is. But the whole point is not quite in her. Here Celine remembered again how the angry Duke Stewart shouted at her and ordered to immediately freeze someone. Suddenly there was a knock on the girl's room, and the girl returned from her memories to reality. It was the maid Anna. Selina asked, "Did something happen?" The maid replied that everything is fine, but the master is calling her. And then, with regret in her voice, Anna added that the Duke was waiting for her right in that room. Getting up from the bed, Selina froze for a moment when she heard the maid's words, but she had nothing to answer. After coming to her senses, the girl finally answered that she understood everything. Concerned, Anna noted that the lady looked so tired, maybe she should ask the master to postpone everything for the next time. Selina told Anna that everything was fine with her, and added that the maid herself knew everything very well. Then, coldly in her voice, the girl said that no one in the estate dares to listen to her father. The next morning, Anna struggled to build a fire in her lady's cold room. Observing the efforts of the maid, Selina asked how far she decided to go. Anna, who was already almost in the chimney itself, replied that the chimney was not burning. The servant asked questions. Why does it still not light up? Is Mr. Millard's strength gone? Then Anna remembered that she had heard that Duke Eckhart was coming this morning to see Lady Celine. The girl was surprised and noted that he came earlier than she expected. Anna said that in connection with this, the owner gave the lady a message. The maid was asked to convey that Duke Eckhart would accompany Lady Celine today. Selina pondered the message for a moment. When it came to her, she was shocked by what she heard. The girl screamed, "What does all this mean?" She rushed to the maid with questions, whether she was offered to become an escort for Millard. Did father really say that? Puzzled by the lady's reaction, Anna replied that he had actually received a message from the palace. In addition, His Highness Leandro will join the lady at today's ritual. In other words, Lady Celine, along with Duke Eckhart, will accompany His Highness Leandro. Selina bit Leandro's plan and was so angry with him that her fists were itching to hit him. Worried, Anna looked at her mistress and noticed that she had not slept at all. Did she suggest that the girl tell the owner that she was sick? Selina replied that she shouldn't. Moreover, maybe the father will listen to the request to stay, but Leandro, definitely not. A little later, Selina arrived at the central square on the territory of the Stewart estate and appeared before His Highness. Leandro smiled when he saw her and said with sarcasm in his voice that he thought she wouldn't come. The girl replied that she would not dare to do so because she cannot obey a possible crown prince. Then Leandro decided to tease a little and told the girl that he didn't think she would ever be old enough to obey his orders. He also noted that it would not be bad if she obeyed and was ready to fulfill his recent proposal. To which Selina replied that she was not ready to stoop to such a disgrace. About herself, Selina noted that Leandro is one of those people who, when a goal appears that they want to achieve, they head straight ahead, not noticing anyone around. Indeed, she could have said that she was ill, and thus she would not have had to come here today. But then Leandro and Millard, under the pretext of visiting the patient, would come to her bedroom. Suddenly, Millard appeared behind Selena and asked what they were talking about, and then he noted that the ritual will begin soon. Leandro asked if Millard is ready. He answered His Highness that he was ready. Selena glanced at the boy and told them to hurry up then. That when the sun goes down, it becomes unbearably cold in the Stewart estate, and she does not want to make her servants in the house shiver from the cold. To this, Millard replied that she should not rush him. If you are in too much of a hurry, everything can go wrong. The girl began to wonder if it was possible for Millard to concentrate. Is he distracted by something? About herself, she asked the boy to stop being so grumpy at every ceremony. The girl did not understand why he constantly behaves like a grumpy cat. Selena then asked Leandro why His Highness chose to attend today's ritual. Since he has so many cases concerning ordinary citizens, why is he here now? And she pointed out that he should not start telling her that this is a matter on which the fate of many of his subjects depends. Leandro was surprised and did not even know what to answer immediately. He carefully looked at the girl and noticed a strange thing about himself, that Selena is the daughter of the Duke of Stewart, and all the subjects of the estate must obey her. Despite this, the servants of the Stewart estate obey Duke Stewart, not Selene. Therefore, there is a very high probability that it is an empty sound for them. But in the presence of Millard, the girl obviously does not want to show the difficult situation in which her whole life is. With his judgment in mind, Leandro thought about what would be the best thing to do in such a case, and came up with something. His Highness replied to Selene that he was actually doing her a favor, and she would have to pay for it in the future. The girl was shocked because it was already too much for her. As soon as she started to say that when it comes to marrying Millard, Leandro interrupted her. He nodded his head and said that they would not talk about it anymore, that the topic of marriage was now forbidden. And he smiled at Selena with a bright, wide smile. About herself, the girl noted that such a cute and smiling face alarmed her. Then Selena asked again if they would definitely not talk about marriage again. Leandro said yes. The girl asked again, "Is he sure?" And the prince noted that she should start the ritual already. Selena gave up and said it was fine, and Leandro continued to smile with satisfaction. It was a warm, sunny day. In connection with the ritual, the streets on the territory of the estate became deserted. Leandro noted that when everyone left, it became somehow too quiet. Then he added that he could step aside and she would talk to Millard. In a displeased voice, Selene noted that His Highness seemed to be leaning towards a forbidden topic. Leandro then cleared his throat and changed the subject to say that Millard was already preparing to begin the ritual. Celian. In the very center of the Stewart estate is a large pillar of fire that warms the entire area. Just as the Stewarts perform a ritual to support the ice wall, the Eckharts also perform a ritual here to infuse power into Celian. But today, during the ritual, when Millard approached the pillar to give it the power of fire, something went wrong. Selena looked at Millard, who was standing in front of Celian, and did not understand what happened to him. It seemed that the boy was not well. The flames engulfed the pillar more, and Millard remained in place. The girl was worried and thought that if he continued in this state, he would put himself in danger. The firepower was really getting out of control. Millard's hands trembled. He himself did not understand what was happening and what went wrong. Selena understood that the ritual should be stopped immediately. Then she told Leandro in her voice that if Millard continued in this state, he would put himself in danger. His Highness became concerned and asked if this meant that the ritual should be stopped. The girl looked at the ash that began to fill the air and answered that it was, but there was a nuance. Selena knew that if she stopped the ritual midway, every cell in Millard would feel excruciating agony. This pain cannot be compared with anything. But if the ritual is continued, Millard may be completely consumed by this uncontrolled flame. Selena weighed all the pros and cons. With the rest, she told herself that she couldn't let Millard die. The girl informed His Highness that she had come up with a way to deal with it. She asked Leandro not to be surprised, as she needed to use her power for a short time. Some time later, Selena was lying and resting on a sofa in one of the rooms of the royal palace. Leandro entered the room and addressed her. The girl rose, surprised at the arrival of His Highness. Leandro noted that she had a hard time and that she did a good job. Selena modestly answered that work, as work is nothing special. But the prince asked her not to be so modest. And he noted that her act can be equated to a feat. After all, she built a huge and high ice wall around the Stewart estate, But Selina indifferently replied that it was the only way to get rid of unwanted looks. If everyone saw that the ritual had failed, rumors would quickly spread and the king would be displeased. And besides, it took her a lot of effort to get Millard out of the cellion. Even though she covered her whole body with ice, it was still too hot there. Summing up, Selina noted that this was probably why she was so tired. To which Leandro said he could let her rest forever if she would do him a favor. Selina began to get annoyed, realizing what was being discussed again. She asked His Majesty, hadn't they already decided everything? And she asked him to stop, because she was already very tired. But Leandro did not back down. He said he could do her a favor and let her rest as long as she wanted. But does the girl not think that it is necessary to fulfill at least one of his requests, considering the fact that he brought her here? Selina frowned and replied that she assumed such a possibility. And about herself, the girl noted that she did not think that everything would turn out like this. His Majesty reported that Millard was still awake. The doctors spread their hands, and his temperature continues to rise. So Leandro asks to do him a favor. He wants Selina to take care of Millard. The prince said that he thought she would be able to heal the Duke, since they both possessed the powers of a goddess, especially the opposite ones. Selina understood what Leandro wanted and why, but one thought did not leave her. That it was with these hands that she froze people to death and never saved anyone. So Selina refused His Majesty his request. Confused, Leandro did not understand her categorical refusal and why she was so upset. Then he suggested in his voice that maybe the girl wanted to say that she could not do it because she had special feelings for Millard. For example, love. The prince's words caught Selina off guard. She wanted to fiercely deny everything, and the guy stopped her. His Highness looked sternly at Selina and said if it wasn't, then she should take control of Millard's fever and heal him. Leandro noted that this was his request and order. Everything around was on fire. The square and the houses on it were burning. Red tongues of flame reached the soot-black sky. Millard wandered among the burning buildings. He noted that it was too hot around and he did not understand where he was. He was tormented by thirst and the boy tried to find even a drop of water. He felt as if all the blood in his veins was evaporating. He was very hot and in pain. Suddenly, among the red tongues of flame, a small snowflake appeared in front of Millard's eyes. Then the boy turned and saw a small whirlwind of many snowflakes, from which the coolness blew. Millard was surprised by the appearance of a snowflake, then realized that it could be and instinctively reached for that vortex of coolness. The next moment, everything around turned white. The boy heard a voice calling him, a voice asking him to get up. Another moment and Millard opened his red eyes. When he regained consciousness, the Duke looked at the ceiling and asked, "Where is he?" And then suddenly jumped up on the bed. The boy looked at his hands and asked himself what happened. The last thing he remembers is the ritual in Cellion. Millard began to remember that the fire at the ritual was stronger compared to last time, so it was not easy for him. Did he lose consciousness? The boy did not remember well what happened there. Then the Duke looked around the room and realized that it was a palace. He assumed that it was His Highness Leandro who had brought them here. Then he noticed Selina, who had fallen asleep sitting next to his bed. Millard was extremely surprised. The guy asked in a surprised voice, "What is she doing here?" Or rather, he was interested in another question. Millard ran his eyes over the half-naked crying girl, then shifted his gaze to the thin ankles that were visible from under the dress. The guy frowned and asked, annoyed that she is a girl in full bloom. So why is she dressed like that? As here from the ceiling of the room, small white and blue snowflakes suddenly began to fall. Catching one in his hand, Millard began to recall little by little that he seemed to have been constantly dreaming of this dream, in which he was in a very hot place. Then the boy thought that surely Selina had saved him. And from yes, he is in debt to her. Then the Duke got out of bed. Then quietly and carefully, so as not to wake her up, he lifted Selina in his arms. He carefully placed the girl on the bed and gently adjusted a lock of hair that had fallen over her face. Millard leaned close to Selina and touched her forehead with his to see if she had a temperature. It was at this moment that Leandro entered the room. Opening the door, he hurried to tell Selina that he seemed to have figured out how to help Millard. And then His Majesty saw a piquant scene where the half-naked Duke hovered over Selina, who was lying on the bed. Shocked, Millard panicked and tried to come up with an explanation for everything that was happening. And Leandro froze at the threshold of the room with a smile on his lips and wide-open eyes. Then the prince became confused and said that it seems he did not choose the most suitable time. Millard began to explain that he did not know what His Highness was thinking, but it was all a misunderstanding. Leandro apologized for bothering them and said he would be back a little later. Millard again began to explain that everything was wrong. It just seemed to him that Selena's body was too cold, so he decided to check. Selene woke up from the quarrel between the prince and the duke. Hearing Millard's voice, the girl opened her eyes, but she saw in front of her a shaved, pumped-up body of a boy who was hanging over her. Selena stared at the worried duke for a few seconds, her eyes wide open. And then he screams. Millard tried to explain everything to her, that everything was not as she thought. That girl did not hear him. She screamed that he was a crazy pervert and scum. The guy said that everything was not right at all. And Selena shouted that she saved his life, and he decided to thank her like this? Millard was asking her to listen to him first. That girl did not hear. Watching this riotous scene, Leandro decided to intervene and advised Millard, instead of clarifying this misunderstanding, the Duke should really get off the girl to begin with. A little later, when everyone calmed down and clarified what was happening, the table was laid in the dining room of the palace. Guests were served tea with various snacks and sweets. Selena changed into a blue dress again with bare shoulders. She was angry, so she didn't even look at Millard, who was also already dressed and was sitting at the table opposite her. The girl gave a smiling Leander, who was sitting at the head of the table, a clear answer, definitely not. His Majesty asked why? He noted that the situation that had just happened showed that they were very close, but in response, Leandro received only angry looks. Selene then told His Highness in a displeased tone that instead they should discuss what happened in the tower today. And in general, they should have discussed the strange behavior of the tower from the very beginning. So why did it all come down to her and Millard getting married again? After listening to Selena's complaints, His Majesty gave a sign to the servant. A moment later, a servant brought a scroll. He handed it to the prince and asked him to read it. When His Majesty opened the scroll, it lit up and magical circles appeared around it. Selena was amazed. She recognized this scroll. It was a magical item called the Scroll of Silence. The girl wondered what Leandro wanted to tell them, that he was using a scroll? As the magical power of the scroll enveloped the room, His Majesty noted that now extra ears would not hear them. Leandro now asked permission to reveal the details of his investigation. The prince said that the fact was that he had received news about a banquet in a magical tower. Millard asked if His Majesty was not embarrassed by the excessive conservatism of the magical tower. Leonardo replied that the Duke was right, but it seems that the tower has started to change. The prince reported that until now the tower had been steadfast in its conservative principles. But the strange thing is that delegations from every country were invited to this banquet, held for the sake of prosperity and harmony. And here's what's interesting. Each delegation must represent a married couple. Despite the fact that they are holding a banquet for the first time and inviting someone to their home, they still dared to take this step. After glancing at Selena, Millard told His Majesty that he seemed to have already said that he was ready to marry Selena. So why focus on it? And the Duke offered to choose someone else and anyone. At these words, Selena just turned away from the boy haughtily. But Leandro asked if Millard understood what nonsense he was talking. After all, he is Duke Eckhart himself, one of the noblest families in the kingdom. Not many daughters of aristocrats are worthy to receive the title of a guy's wife. His Majesty also noted that the banquet in the Magic Tower would take place in 2 months. In other words, they have to decide on Millard Eckhart's companion in just 2 months. Then Millard asked that even if there was not enough time and they had absolutely no worthy candidates, then why was it necessary to concentrate on Selena and press on her like that? Leandro asked Millard to calm down for a start and explained that he simply didn't take all the necessary precautions. If he wanted to, he would have forced him, and no one would have said a word to him. The Duke did not understand the prince. His Majesty explained that it was simply his wish. After all, why look for another candidate, if they are both perfectly suited to each other, to live a life of happiness and unhappiness? And who, if not he, will be their mediator? And besides, this is not only his desire, it will be better and easier this way. Selena thought about it and asked Leandro if that didn't mean the whole thing was a feast held by a magical tower, and that after that they will be able to part peacefully. His Majesty replied that there was no need to divorce. If they do everything right and want it themselves, then he will do everything so that their marriage does not exist, that he will wipe it very carefully. Selena began to think. She noted that Leandro's method was effective enough, even though it was so stupid, but the magic tower is a closed territory of majestic and secretive sorcerers, and it is from there that her father gets the medicine that is used to treat her younger brother Neville. And this means that they must have a recipe and a method of preparing the necessary medicines for Neville. If only Celine managed to get them, Neville and she would not have to suffer anymore. If only she could get into the tower and learn the necessary recipe, she and Neville would finally be free of everything. Here, Millard's voice brought the girl back to reality. He asked her to finally answer something. Then the Duke asked His Majesty, "What exactly is caution?" As here, Selena said she would do it. His Majesty, Leandro, and Millard were stunned by what they heard. There was a silent silence in the room. Then Selena looked at Millard with her blue eyes and told him, "Let's get married." Later, Millard and Selena stepped out into the hallway. The guy shouted that she must have gone crazy, and her phrase, "Let's get married?" What kind of nonsense did the girl carry? Celine answered Millard in a calm tone that she hadn't gone crazy or what else he had in mind. She also asked the guy not to shout at her and asked what is stopping them from getting married at all. Moreover, if you think and remember one moment, they should have done it a long time ago. Did the Duke not understand what she meant? The girl opened the door of the room and invited the Duke to enter and talk already in the middle. She also asked him once again not to shout because everyone could hear. Somehow they were still in the royal palace and there were many prying eyes around. Clenching his teeth with anger, Millard looked at the courtiers walking in the corridor of the palace and agreed to Selena's proposal. Once in the room, the Duke again asked the girl what she was thinking about when she talked about marriage. Selena noted that she seems to have already said everything, which even a fool would already understand, so she repeats it again. And turning to the boy, Selena spoke again in a gentle voice, "Let's get married." Millard was speechless. He barely gathered his thoughts and asked why she suddenly started talking about it. And he noted that the girl, at some point, even forced His Highness to prohibit the topic of marriage. The guy also suggested that maybe Selena got sick after dinner, or maybe this is all the consequences of the ritual with Célian. The girl replied that it was not so. Millard then spoke about what had happened last year at the Academy's graduation ceremony. With sadness in his voice, he said that maybe that event made a strong impression on Selena, and now it seems to him that he missed something very important. The guy said he thought they forgot it and it was over. Selena noted that she said that phrase. The girl approached him later and asked if he remembers what he said then, that he was ready to take responsibility. Millard replied that he only said so because it was so convenient for him. Moreover, then the girl clearly said that she did not need his responsibility. Selena agreed that everything was like that. Then the girl wrapped her arms around Millard's neck and, looking into his eyes, suggested they do it again. The boy did not like Selena's strange behavior, but just as he wanted to answer her, she interrupted him. Selena gently told him to take charge this time, and after these words, she passionately kissed Millard. Then came memories of a loud and fun graduation at the academy. It was night in the courtyard, and the graduates drank a lot, had fun, and celebrated. Then someone started looking for Millard, noting that they hadn't eaten him yet. Quickly and stealthily leaving the walls of the academy, Millard wondered if those scoundrels must have been drinking only strong drinks instead of water all their lives. How a bottle rolled to the boy's feet. Millard wondered where she could have come from. He looked around and saw Selena in the gazebo. She also noticed the boy and said hello. The girl also tipped a couple of bottles in honor of graduation and asked Millard if he liked the banquet. When Millard came closer, he saw more than one empty bottle of alcohol on the table. He was surprised and asked if she really drank all that. Selena looked at the boy and asked if he meant that she had no friends to drink with. The guy replied that she has a strange logic. And then he noted that she was very drunk and offered to take the girl to the dormitory. With sadness in her eyes and a sad voice, Selena answered that she did not want to go. And she asked Millard if he would sit with her for a while. At the sight of such a sweet and charming Selena, Millard's cheeks immediately turned red, and his heart began to beat wildly. The guy thought to himself that maybe she wants to make him hysterical and complain about life. And Millard told the girl that she was too drunk and that it was really time for her to go to bed. The guy also noted that if she continues to drink, she will reach such a state that she will not be able to come to the main ceremony tomorrow. Selena smiled and asked Millard what did he mean he thought she would come to the ceremony. Millard wondered why she wouldn't go. After all, diplomas will be handed out there. Their families will also be present. She will also be able to see her friends with whom she studied all this time for the last time. Sighing, Selena asked what family he meant, not the Stewarts. She noted that these people are not her family, and she has no friends to say goodbye to. Therefore, she has no reason to come to tomorrow's ceremony. The boy understood why she said that, but it made him sad. And Selena staggered up from the table and said that it was really time for her to go. Finally, she asked Millard to put away all those bottles after her. But after taking only a few uncertain steps, a dazed Selena grabbed her own leg. And stumbling, the girl very aptly fell right into the arms of Millard, who managed to pick her up. Holding Selena by her fragile and soft shoulder, Millard looked into her eyes and asked if she wanted to have a drink with him. But not here, but in his room. Having moved to the boys' room, the couple poured a few more bottles of alcohol. Selena noted that the boy was surprisingly very bad at drinking, and that his face was now very red. Millard laughed and asked her not to mock him. The girl also smiled and noted that even Millard has weaknesses. Millard thought to himself that it seems the last time they had a good conversation was when they were 7 years old. The boy then asked Selena what she thought of him. The girl began to tell that he was a boy of noble origin adored by everyone. Here Millard said she had something on her face. Selena was surprised and, trying to wipe everything off, asked where exactly. Suddenly, Millard's hand touched the girl's face. Wiping the dirt with his finger, the boy replied that he was here. Raising her blue eyes, Selena met Millard's gaze and they both froze. Selena blushed, and Millard, coming to his senses, quickly removed his hand and apologized to the girl. But suddenly, Selena herself pushed the boy on the bed and, standing over him, kissed her. The girl's kisses became more and more passionate, and she began to slowly unbutton the boy's jacket and his shirt. Selena then took a step back and looked at the embarrassed, half-naked Millard. She also knew her dress. And then, sitting on top of Millard and looking into his red eyes, she told him to forget this day. Having spent a night of pleasure, in the morning, Millard woke up in bed from a strange rustling. Opening his eyes, he saw how already dressed Selena was going to quietly leave the room. The guy called out to her. Getting up from the bed, the boy noted that it was still very early and asked Selena where she was going. The girl, without turning around, coldly replied that she was going home. Millarder was surprised and once again asked if she really wasn't going to the main ceremony, and added that if they start getting together now, they will have time. The girl asked what he was talking about. After a little confusion, Millard said that she had nothing to do there, because the girl's family was not her family and she had no friends. And for that matter, he is ready to take responsibility for what happened. Responsibility, Selene replied coldly. She said in an indifferent voice that Millard should not be a fool for at least one day. She emphasized that yesterday they were both very drunk, and this was just a drunken accident, that they are both just victims. The girl looked coldly at the boy and added that she did not need any responsibility. Millard was stunned by her words. He told Selena that he knew she wasn't that drunk yesterday, and that they both knew she wanted it too. Selena calmly replied that it was not true. Taking a small suitcase in her hands, she asked the boy if he thought that anyone could have been in his place, and she answered to herself that she thought so too. Leaving the room, the girl asked him to pretend that nothing had happened. Millard was shocked. He tried to stop Selena and asked her to wait, but it was no use. She went away. Returning to the present, in one of the rooms of the royal palace, Millard reminded Selene that she had said then that they needed to forget about that day. To which the girl replied that this is why they would do it again. Selena told him not to do anything, just lie there and be quiet. But when she reached for the buttons on his shirt, Millarder waved him off. Lying on the floor, the boy reminded Selena of her words that anyone could have been in his place. Millard asked if it was possible that day had really left some mark on her life. Selena looked at the boy and replied that she wouldn't believe it until it happened. Getting up from the floor, the girl said that if he didn't want to, then they wouldn't do it. And calmly added that then she will just leave. Millard thought for a moment. And then he jumped up sharply and firmly grabbed the hand of Selena, who was already heading for the door. He threw the shocked girl on the floor and, hovering over her, looked into her eyes. Without saying a word, Millard just started kissing Selena passionately and passionately. His thrust increased and the boy's hand slid down the girl's thigh, pressing him to himself. Freeing her mouth, a puzzled Selena asked Millard to wait. And he asked why. And he repeated the girl's proposal, which she repeated to him. Let's do it, so he agrees. Pausing for a moment, Millard looked into Selena's eyes and assured her that he would make sure she never forgot this day. A dark night descended on the palace. There was a mess of scattered clothes in the room. Millard and Selena were resting in bed. Millard looks at the sweetly sleeping girl, not taking his red eyes off her. He quietly asked her if this time was better than last time. How did Selena answer here? What is the guy talking about? Does he think she had it easy last time? Millard was a little embarrassed because he thought she was still asleep. Getting up from the bed, Selene disgruntledly noted that it was rather better for him. She reminded Millard that that day at the ceremony, he calmly walked to the podium and finished his prepared speech. With despair in her voice and clutching the blanket, Selena said that she was like a fool back then. Sitting down on the bed, Millard asked what she was talking about. The girl began to get annoyed. She did not understand why he was pestering her again with questions. With a stern expression on his face, Millard told Selena that he would ask her again, so he asked her to look into his eyes and answer as honestly as possible. What did that day mean to her? Selena thought for a few seconds. Then she became confused and, not finding suitable words, simply nodded to Millard. The guy was surprised. He also became confused and asked if it was true. Is she not lying to him? Selena grunted in displeasure. Why does the guy keep asking if he doesn't believe her? And in general, she was tired, so she offered to rest. Millard blushed even more, and then quickly turned away and silently went back to bed. Selena also lay back. She reflected that last time she had excused herself by saying they were both drunk, but this time they did it while sober. But is it good or bad? And what happened today? After that, they have to get married. Millard is a nice and sweet person. He is the only one who treated her well, even when she was rude to him. Among all the people who were jealous of her having the power of a goddess, Millard was the only one who sympathized and understood how heavy a burden it was. The girl also said about herself that Millard is absolutely perfect for her in all aspects. Remembering about all aspects, Selena burst out with shame and blushed. She did not understand why she even remembered about it and began to drive these lustful thoughts away. Selena then went on to reflect that she really appreciated Millard Eckhart. He always helped her in everything and was by her side. In addition, he is her first sexual partner. And come to think of it, she would really like to see him by her side when she had to deal with the Duke's work. Perhaps the girl would even dream of using this marriage to escape from her worthless family. She felt guilty about it, but there was nothing she could do about it. Even if Millard begins to accuse her of selfishness, she will endure everything. But in order to escape from the family, you need to enter the magical tower and find out about the recipe for medicine, the existence of which Millard does not even know. Then she will take Neville and be able to provide them with a happy life. In her mind, Selena turned to Millard saying that she was really sorry to do this to him, but she needed to take care of her brother. In the morning, Selena and Millard were summoned to meet with His Highness Leandro. Seeing the couple, the prince smiled and glowed with happiness. Although Selena and Millard had grim expressions on their faces, Leandro began to ask if they had started dating yet, when exactly, and he noted that changes in them are already visible. Then the prince said that it was somehow strange and suggested that all this time they had been hiding their love for each other, and applauded the best actors in the theater. Leandro wondered how they managed to hide everything from him all this time. After all, he is known for all his insight. But when Millard wanted to answer something to His Highness, he gave the Duke a piercing look, showing that it was better not to contradict him. Millard then asked His Highness to continue, for the prince had something to say to him. Leandro continued. He said that since this decision was made by the two of them, he should at least find out the reason why they dared to do this. Clenching her fists, Selena announced that she changed her mind when His Highness told him about the magic tower. There is one thing she has to do there. Millard looked at the girl in surprise, and Leandro asked what exactly she was interested in there. Without thinking for a long time, Selena blurted out that she needed to steal something from there. His Majesty and the Duke's jaws dropped. The girl said that they did not hear. She, the future Duchess, openly declared her intention to become a criminal. His Highness noted that they had both surprised him for the second time that day. Then Leandro turned to Millard and said that he was now ready to listen to his story, and considering the Duke's reaction, he also heard Selena's story for the first time. The prince asked the boy why he decided to marry Selene. Is he sure he agrees? Millard remembered the previous evening, and the girl's words that this time he should take charge. The boy understood that, in fact, then he already understood everything as soon as he looked into her blue eyes. And he went to her not because he liked it, or because he desperately wanted something else. It was the moment when he first saw the sincerity in Selena's eyes, her true desire. Without realizing it, the boy felt an obligation to help. He understood that Selena offered him a sleepover to put on the noose of responsibility on him, but really before that, and without thinking of anything better, Millard answered Leandro's question simply because he was ready to take responsibility. With a heavy sigh, His Majesty said that he had thought that the boy would say so. Leandro then asked Selena what exactly she wanted to steal. If it's gold or treasure, he can still give it to her in abundance. Millard turned sharply to Leandro and asked what His Highness would offer him if he married Selena. The prince thought. And then, smiling slyly, he replied that it seems that marriage itself, and the opportunity to be one with Selena, is already a reward for Millard. The guy was embarrassed and said that he meant what benefit his Eckhart family would get from the marriage. Looking at Selena, Millard wanted to say something, but the girl interrupted him. She said that neither gold nor jewelry is needed. Therefore, Millard asked not to think of spending her blood money on a fictitious marriage in advance. Selena, in a firm voice, once again clearly emphasized that the boy should not give her anything. There was silence in the room. No one expected such a serious statement from the girl. Then Leandro noted that Selena knows how to intrigue. He once again asked to tell what she needed so much in the magic tower. Maybe in their kingdom there is such a thing? Selene sadly replied that what she needed was found and could only be obtained in a magical tower. Millard noted that in that case, she could make a legal request. Selena angrily glared at the boy and said that if she could, she would have done it a long time ago. But the thing she needs cannot be obtained legally. Millard thought to himself that this was the reason. The girl wants to marry him in order to steal something from the magic tower. His Majesty asked Selena if she did not think that he could let into the magical tower one who had already declared her intention to steal something important from there. And the prince added that the task he wants to entrust them with is quite dangerous, that it will be difficult for them to deal with the task, and in the interests of the girl, it is another impossible mission. Selena was quick to assure Leandro that she would make sure no one caught her. The girl promised that she would not bring any problems to the Eckhart family and His Highness. She began to beg the prince very much and emphasized that she really wanted to get to the magic tower. Millard sat and watched with what hope and tenacity Selene begged for permission. Then the boy turned to His Majesty and said that he would take all the responsibility and look after Selena. Millard also stated that he was ready to make every effort to fulfill His Majesty's requests. Leandro became a little embarrassed by the boy's words. He noted that it was up to the Duke anyway, so he hoped Millard was ready. Then His Highness gave a clear order that if their lives were in danger, they should surrender immediately. Selena gladly agreed with the prince, and Millard asked His Majesty to explain in more detail what kind of work he was entrusting them with. Leandro said that first they need to get married, then follow the invitation as a delegation to the magical tower, and find their evidence of their guilt in the events taking place in the kingdom. Selena wondered what had happened so strangely in the kingdom that the prince needed to find evidence in the magical tower. Leandro replied that it was because of a very unusual incident. His Highness said that a man recently died not far from the port city. There was nothing strange in his death, so there are no problems with it. And the fact is that the next day the man came to life and walked normally. Selena speculated that maybe the man just wasn't dying, or was there a miracle? Leandro replied that he thought so too, but in their times miracles do not happen often. Millard asked if the prince meant to say that there had been similar incidents in other cities as well. With sadness, His Highness reported that there had been more than 10 similar cases where the dead rose up and began to wander. And they have a strange trait. They attack other people and bite them. They eat people like meat. The knights fighting them cannot defeat them. In other words, after awakening, they are simply impossible to kill. Knights say that even after a fireball and numerous sword blows to the body, they move as if nothing had happened. His Majesty concluded that they had to deal with the resurrected dead biting other people, and asked those present, do they not think that there are too many peculiarities in this incident to consider it as something natural? Millard then asked why His Highness believed that the magic tower was involved in these incidents. This is how he specified it for reference. After all, judging by the story of the prince, there are no leads that would lead to the tower. So why then does His Highness think they are? Leandro reported that he had received another piece of information that human experiments were being conducted in the magic tower. Hearing the words of His Highness, Millard was shocked and Selina shuddered in horror. The prince said that 200 years ago, a mad sorcerer experimented with chimeras on animals and people. As a result, it was condemned by authorities across the continent, and a continental law banning experiments on humans was created. The magic tower took this law into account, and the sorcerer, who was engaged in experiments on people, suddenly disappeared. Leandro pointed out that there are sorcerers in the magic tower who will do their best to discover new knowledge and magic. He thinks that a lot has happened in 200 years, and they could return to it. Shocked, Millard said that he knew wizards were obsessed with anything new, and that this was the cause of many incidents. His Majesty emphasized that one should not fall for the tricks of these magicians. In the history of magic and aristocracy, it was said that wizards were subject to many laws and prohibitions from the side of the law. But still, there are those who succumb to temptation. Recently, there have been many cases of fraud by sorcerers, starting even from when ordinary people in different parts of the kingdom gave them all their money. Millard asked His Majesty how much he could rely on the information he had received about human experimentation. Is it logical to secretly explore the magic tower, relying only on information, the truth of which the prince cannot guarantee? For that matter, it's like raiding a hornet's nest. The Duke also noted that if they were caught, the wizards would have every opportunity to counterattack His Highness. Millard then turned to Selina and asked her what she thought of all this, but the girl was silent. She was lost in her memories of a horrible place in the basement of the Stewart estate, a room with various substances and syringes, and a creepy man in a wizard's robes. Was Millard looking at Selina and not understanding what was going on? What is she thinking about so much that she doesn't even hear how they address her? He also noted that the girl's face had become somewhat pale. The boy suggested that this incident greatly affected her emotional state. And then Millard had the stupidest thought that maybe he had gone a little too far in the crib yesterday. After thinking carefully, the boy decided that, whatever the reason, it was better to take a break. He turned to His Highness and said that it was time for him and Selina to prepare for the wedding. Therefore, he asked the prince to return to this topic next time. Leandro gladly agreed to change the subject and let the couple prepare for such a significant event. Rising from his seat, Millard turned to Selina and said that it was time for them to go. Returning to reality, the girl followed the boy. But when Selina got up from the sofa, her head was dizzy and she almost fell. Thank God Millard was nearby and caught the girl. She got up and moved away from the boy. Millard asked if she was all right. Selina replied that everything was fine. She was just a little lost in her thoughts. Millard watched Selina silently as she left the room. Looking at him, Leandro noted that it was not easy for the boy and wished the Duke to protect himself. Millard agreed. Stepping out into the corridor, Selina told Millard that it was time for her to go home. The guy kindly offered to take her in his carriage. Millard thought to himself, wondering if her attitude towards him would change once they were married. After all, last time the girl was extremely unhappy that he gave her a ride. Then the Duke asked Selene, maybe she would rest a little more in the palace? It seems to him that she has not yet completely moved away from everything.